Today we're going to be going through Eruvin Daf Chav Dal and Amud Aleph and for Daf Yomi. So we were discussing the question of which parts of the Beit were planted versus unplanted, and whether the majority of the minority of being planted would render the whole area to be unusable. So Ella Itmar Hachitmar. So we were frequently situated before about the question of when there is a large part of the field that is seeded. So which part? So how would it be allowed? Hamiuta shari. That if it's only the minority of the field is seeded with crops, then would it be you'd be allowed to carry the entirety of the enclosure? Amar Huna Breder of Yeshua Lo Amran Elo de Lo Havi Beit Satayim. Of all Beit Satayim Asr. That only works if the area that was seeded was less than Beit Satayim. But once the area that's seeded is one Beit Satayim, that not be the case. The commands, who is the opinion stated according to Gurbanan? This is the opinion of the who say that that you view the whole thing, you view the whole yard as one totality. You simply divide it into the mutar and usher sections. For Yomi Difti matni lakula. But Yomi Difti explains it lakula hamiut tashari that only when a minority is filled in it would be permissible. So Amar Huna Breder of Yeshua Lo Amran El Beit Time. When he says only when it's Beit Time, later Cherry Beit Time Asur. But when it's more than Beit Time, then it is Asur. Come on, Shimon heals Rabbi Shimon that that actually this is referring to Rabbi Shimon about and saying within that owns own section is the question. At the owns own section, that owns own section also the section that someone sees also be a problem. So not the rubo, what happens if you planted the majority of it with trees. So however you then it's considered to be as if it's a normal courtyard and you're allowed to carry. Amar Yehuda Amar Rabimi, so that only works if they were planted in organized rows. As one would most likely see in the case of a as one would see in an orchard nowadays. So here. So then again, orderly in a row takes distance. That's the only time when we'd say that it's considered to be a rishut yachid. So Mar Yehuda Ikla Levei Ravuna Bar Yehuda. So Yehuda went to the house of Rav Huna, the son of Yehuda. They didn't have them planted in rows. And they're still carrying. Amarlai. No, I like Rav Nachman. It says that it doesn't matter whether or not they're planted in rows or not, as long as it's planted for trees. It means that you still intended to have used to use the area and it is still fine. So Amar Nachman Amar Shmuel. Karpav Yetemet Zadayim Yilohuk Shalukaf Ladira Keter. So Nachman said to the name of Shmuel, if you have a karpav that's greater than 2 sa, then and it is not made fit for living in right now. How should you go about making it allowed again? The poets both periods of term answer. You make a gap in the wall more than 10. And then you break a hole in the wall to passel the so that way it's no longer a proper residence, and then when you fix it back up again, and then now you state that it's going to be for residence, and that's how you'll be able to fix it. So Ibayalu, now it's going to really work. Paras Amma Vagadar Amma, Paras Amma Ugadra, Ashi Shimol Yoter Mastermind. So what happens if we did it instead of doing it all at once? We did it one Amma at a time, but we would do the same thing. Amalei. Lav Hainu did not. That's not what we taught in the Mishnah. That called Baale Batim Shiran Kirimonim. This is not what we learned, that all ritually, if your vessels belong to ordinary homeowners, become ritually impure if they have holes like pomegranates. So can we say that license that should be the same if you have large holes in your walls too? So Ba'acheskia Nikav Kamotzi Zayit Ustamo. Then they say no. Let's compare this to the case of a similar case of, let's say, of a kli. Let's say it's normally say an olive size hole is impossible. So what would we say if you kept making a lot of small olive size holes and stopping them up? Would you say that the whole kli is possible? No. So as you see here, the question of making the small holes, right? So the question is, if you kept making filling them in, then it wouldn't make it still be kosher kli the whole time. Why would you say that would be a standing for chatzer? So Amar Yochanan, Rabbi Shanit Alanu. So Rabbi Yochanan says, but Rabbi, didn't you teach us that sandal shein sukkah achat me'oznav shetigna tamei midras? Didn't you teach us that if a sandal, one of its and one of the straps broke, and then you fix it, that it remains spiritually impure? And so from Midrash of meaning it could be from Metzger, from Nida, from Zav, from Zava, right? So those Midrash would still apply. So Nitzaka should have taken Tahor ben Midrash, but about Tamei Mago Midrash. So if two of them were broken, that means that it is that it is removed from usable status. Let me say that it is no longer considered to be able to become Tamei Midrash because it's not used for that. About Tamei Mago Midrash, but it's allowed to become Tamei through contact with an object that was Tamei Midrash, but it itself can't be. Come interesting more. Amar to line you said that Mashna Rishana Daha Kamashnia. So so why is there the first case as well as the second case? And what's the difference? Shnia Nami Ha Kaima Rishana. Right. So I understand, right, the second case because then it's because it's broken. But the first case, like what about the other one? Like why is that not enough to allow it to be if it's partially intact? Why is that not enough? Amar to Allah, you said. Then you said to us. It's a new entity, and that's why you consider it differently now. It's the same thing here. That once you perforate many holes, it's something that means that since the whole area of the hole is completely new, therefore it should be considered. It should be as if it's a new item. Therefore, same thing to our mechitza that we're trying to make a lot of holes into too. So kariyalei late din bar inish. So you're so impressed. So he was so impressed by this response. They said, "Late din bar inish." So they said, "This person is inhuman. Rather, he must be an angel." He could go on din bar nash, or he could have stated that what was his praise that this person that he is an ideal human being, right? So in the end, so he says, "You're right. That is the correct comparison. That just like we stated in the case of the shoe, if you did it, that if you broke and fixed, or if the hole in the container broken, fixed, that eventually you would wind up having a hole. You then have a the whole shoe is that whole area is new enough. Obviously, it's a new shoe. So here too, that would also we also say that would work as well. Okay. Rav Kahana. So Rav Kahana says that if you have a yard that is behind houses and no house directly opens into it, you can't carry in it except for Daladama. But once you have a way manner of access, right? So if this is currently an enclosed door with no access points, then it's a problem. You can't use it. But once you have a door, as in here, then you are allowed to carry in that region. So below Amran Elisha Patach Hukaf. So but we stated this that only when it is open, and then that when it is open, and then you added the walls. But if you already had all the walls surrounding it, then below Amran Elisha Patach Hukaf. About Hukaf Patach low. It only works though if the entrance is already there, and then you built the fence around it. Not if there's already a fence, and you just built a doorway in your house. That doesn't work. You'll be able to carry. Patach will have hukaf shita. Oh, I mean, obviously, if you had the opening and then you build a fence around it, you'd be allowed to carry because that's just a courtyard. No, you need to state it. Why? Because there are because the area is where there's a threshing floor. No, you may have thought the reason why you made the entrance is because you wanted to have access to the threshing floor and not access to the whole yard. That we say that's sufficient. So karpaf yatem that time. So if you have a karpaf that is more than time in an area, and then you have a fence around it, and then the whole thing fills it with water. The question is, so what is the status? The Rabbanan said this is because it's exceeded, therefore it's usher. Because people wouldn't live in a fully flooded region. So so this is so Rav Abba the father of Rav, son of Rav, said, we say in the name of Rav, stating that the water is like planted trees, so therefore one isn't. It's like planted trees, not like planted seeds. Therefore, you're allowed to carry. So Meimar, so that only depends if the water is fit for regular use, i.e., it's clean water, therefore they could use. But if it's not useful water, then that not be the case. So so Ravashi limits it further. He says that even if the water is permissible, that's only when it is not too deep for the area of Beit time. It was too deep, so Rashi says that it is 10. That it's 10 tvachim. Because anything more than that would be that it would not the area would definitely not be useful. Law milta he needed to have a karya de bear. Right? And the Gemara says that would not be the same thing as a. So that no, but that's not true because for instance, we said that if you cover your entire yard in fruit, that would not be an issue. Okay, right? So if you piled up the your whole yard full of fruit, even and produce, even if it's over 10 if it's 10 tachim high, that is an asset the whole field. So similarly, right? Or if you built a pit for that, also would make the whole area asser. So why should this be a problem? Okay, so those are the diagrams number 87 and 88. Okay, and then we have the so therefore we said that it wouldn't be a problem yet. Let's have more rejecting Ravashi's. So Hahi Rachava Dahava Pum Nahara Daha Gisa have a petach lamata, Vagisa have a petach l'shvil shakramim, l'shvil shakramim have a salak good dinara. There's a certain town called the yard of the town of Pum Nahara. That was larger. That again is a little darker because it must have been the purpose side of Beit's time, and not Hukuladir yet. So one side was open to an alleyway in the town. The other side was open to a walled path between vineyards, and that vineyard itself led to the riverbank that was 10 tvachim high, and that should be considered to be mechitza, as seen in diagram number 91. Right. So. Okay, so we got the person's rechava. Then we've got the mavoi leading into it. We've got the path down to the water bank, as well as the wall by the water bank. So what should we do? So should we make a wall by the river bank, and therefore the way at least on the vineyard part is covered on it's got walls on all sides. No, but that's not true because we don't make a wall to another wall. Maybe you should say that we should put a door frame at the mouth of the vineyard path, as seen in 10.3. To go so it works for and then once that wall of the sort of petach works for the vineyard, it'll also work for the rechava. So Rava. No, that's a problem. But then people start saying that a side post works for the vineyard path. Ella Amarava Abdina Lechi Lepitcha Demata Demigo Demhane Lechi Lamato Hana Amit Amirchava. Rather, it said they should arrange the side post at the beginning of the rechava headed towards the town. Since the side post is effective for the mavoi, it's also effective for the rechava to carry within the rechava. Therefore, carrying within the town itself is allowed. Then you're allowed to carry also within the yard. But when you're trying to carry within the regions from the mavoi into the rechava, whether it's the argument between the two of them, Ravach and Ravina, one austers and one permits it. One shari, the halak here, and the one who allows it is because there are no residents, therefore nobody can prohibit it. No, because it shows that sometimes residents there will be there who can prohibit carrying either in the public in the mavoi or in the rechava, and therefore they might unwittingly carry from the mavoi into the rechava, and because of that, and that will turn it into balance for their chabad. Therefore, we don't want them to follow this, so we're not allowing them to do so. Okay, and that is Daf Chavdalad Amud for the Daf Chavdalad, and we will hopefully pick up from there tomorrow.